You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. And here we go. Welcome to a third year bonus of the podcast Me and Paranormal You, the Mindcast. We are going to be talking about all things esoteric, paranormal, supernatural. We're going to be covering the release of the Bigfoot video I put on the internet for the public. We're going to talk about some thoughts on thoughts. And, who else? And we might even get into Lemuria a little bit. This is Ryan Singer, your host. I'd like to, if you'd indulge me, let's run this back. Well, I guess I could tell you about that as well. I might talk about, when you're the pond and the raindrop, but and that'll make sense at some point here if we get into it. But I want to kind of cover something. I'm working on this book. It's a comedy paranormal book, kind of a memoir, I guess, biography or whatever it is, whatever you would want to call it, and tentatively calling it Shapeshifter. And it's about my journey through comedy and into the paranormal while being in comedy already kind of being on the outskirts of mainstream society, and then kind of finding even a subset of that in the paranormal. So is the paranormal world bigger than the comedy world? That's actually a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know which world might be bigger. Comedy has definitely been mainstream longer than the paranormal, I would argue. Even though maybe the paranormal has been around, well, I would say it's been around just as long as comedy has. Storytelling in general, whether it was comedic or paranormal or scary or mythological, of legend and lore, those probably, they go hand in hand. And many scary stories have to have comedy in them. And some comedy stories are scary sometimes. Anyway, okay, so let's get into some thoughts from today. And my prompt that I came up with for freestyle writing was something that occurred to me. It's something that came up while I'm working on one of the chapters of this book, right? And that it's been on the shelf way too long, collecting dust. I'm finally getting back into it, and we're about 25% of the way through doing another edit on this book. So, and I'll do more later tonight. So I'll be excited to have more information about that next year sometime. Early next year. So the prompt here was, remember hearing my name. Do you remember hearing your name for the first time? This would be a fascinating memory to have if you could or do remember it. That moment when you realize you are something other than what you feel inside or what you think. And who even truly knows what kind of thoughts we are having at such a young age, before we know words? Are thoughts even possible without words? I understand we have emotions, feelings, and urges, but how do we label them without words? The things we want or hope and wish for are beyond articulating before we are equipped with the words to articulate them. Obviously, as children, we know how to use noises to convey the emotions and urges we are experiencing in our mind, but maybe we use more nonverbal communication during this period. I've never raised a child, but I have seen how animated their faces become when they are trying to convey information. There are fewer things in life more frustrating than when our communication is misunderstood or just not understood in any way. It happens more than any of us would like to admit, though. As language develops, we all assume we are becoming smarter. You often hear stories of brilliant children who start speaking early, and that early speech is why they are considered to be so bright or intelligent. It seems to me that while language is a very useful tool, it is also somewhat limiting of our emotions, feelings, and urges, because there are only so many words we learn to describe these things. And we are trusting that we grasp the collectively agreed upon meaning. And even then, We are trusting that we all have the same understanding of the definitions and meanings of the words that make up the definition of the word in question. We are making so many assumptions along the way and every day when we talk to anyone, including ourselves. It is a wonder any true thought or idea or emotion in its purest and intended form from one person's mind to another is ever successful in its transmission, considering this. Is it possible that maybe we are smarter without language? I highly doubt that to be the case, but it's an interesting thought to ponder. Writing the phrase form from, now we can go back here just a little bit. So there's a sentence, a couple sentences, it says, it's a wonder any true thought or idea or emotion in its purest and intended form from one person's mind to another is ever successful in its transmission. Writing the phrase, quote, form from, end quote, tripped me up for a moment because I failed to differentiate between the two when seeing them written, even though I was the one writing them. When two words are so similar looking, I have to believe they are closely related, even if that relation is not obvious at first. Form is the way something looks, how it's shaped, or how it is organized, I think. If I had to define it, I would say it's the shape, appearance, or organization of something as it is related to the other things of that same kind or origin. Something like that. From is probably a preposition. I guess I have never thought of this before. It is, or seemingly always is, used in conjunction with a verb. You quote, come from, or came from, or traveled from, or from whence you came. It seems to be location or direction based. It has origin vibes or original location meaning oftentimes. But it seems it's always in tandem. If you're pointing at a map, you cannot say, I come there, and have it mean remotely the same thing as I come from there. That wasn't supposed to be so adult or grown up, by the way. It just happened. So, from has a previous connotation to it, and form has clear parameters or design connotations. Is it safe to say form came from, or form from, or from form? Ultimately, this is all a result from learning a form of language called English that, while it makes for fun wordplay from time to time, probably fails as we flail to communicate. Or, I flailed to communicate that sentence. Did you hear that? Let's do that again. Where do we start here? Ultimately, this is all a result from learning a form of language called English that, while makes for fun wordplay from time to time, probably fails as we flail to communicate our vast array of emotions, urges, and ideas. Does that mean we should stop trying? Far from it. Wow. So we did find a way to use it without a verb after all. Good form. Okay, so those are just some, musings I had, just freestyle writing. Didn't know what I was going to write today when I sat down. That ends up spewing out of the mind device. Don't know if you ever do freestyle writing, but highly recommend it as a daily exercise if you can manage to find time. About an hour a day. I would say by the last 20 minutes, typically, you get into an area of thought or ideas that you never would have imagined yourself to be hanging out in when you first sat down and put pen to pad or typing away on the computer. I like to write in legal pads, yellow legal pads myself, because I'm a lefty. I don't need that binder messing up my flow on the left-hand side there. So those are some thoughts. I want to tell you about an experience last night that I had during a deep guided meditation. And we're going to, because it's what's interesting is meditation for me has changed so much over the years. And we're going to get into this as soon as we get back. We're going to take a short break. And this is a reminder. Thank you to all the patrons. No matter how long you stay over there, I love you for it. You pop in for a month. Boom. Appreciate that. You be a free patron for years. I say go for it. Just hanging out over in the community over there. I appreciate that. I thank you for it. Especially to the longtime patrons, even more, not even, I don't thank you more, but I guess I don't know. I guess I do. It's much appreciated. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month, no commercials. We'll be right back. Have returned. I hope you have returned as well. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. This is a 30-year bonus of me and Paranormal You. This is Stream of Consciousness, Freestyle. I've got a book called Lost Continents, The Atlantis Theme in History, Science, and Literature by L. Sprague de Camp. L. Sprague de Camp. I bought this book in Denver, Colorado, handful of years ago at a bookstore when I was there. We're going to get into that because I got a page marked for some Lemurian action that I thought was interesting at the very least. Maybe we'll get into that and some Lost Continent talk. But is there going to be disclosure and revelations about lost continents and Atlantis and Lemuria and all these other things that are in conjunction with UFO and UAP disclosure moving forward in the next year, 2, 3? We don't know. I obviously don't know that. There are fascinating things happening in the world constantly. There are also tragic things happening immediately right now in our physical 3D plane. And it's heartbreaking. And I hope you're doing okay. And we can change our own world, and we can do our best to contribute to a greater change of the whole by, being an example of what we want to see in the world, and also donating to causes, potentially nonprofits, etc., volunteering to help in certain situations with other organizations as well. I love Earthworks. Big fan of Earthworks. If you don't know Earthworks, it's an environmental nonprofit action group. You can Google them. You can check them out. That's one of my favorites. Okay, moving on. I want to tell you. So I'm doing this guided meditation program, right? And let's just say that the meditation I do now is different than the meditation I was doing 4 or 5 years ago. Certainly, even 2 years ago, probably. Now, I typically I have a Bluetooth speaker, I'll burn some incense or get some candles going, maybe both. I'll get some crystals, maybe put some of them on my body in certain spots that correlate with chakras, potentially. Now, there could be some manifestation happening. There could be some sigils. Depending on the phase of the moon, etc. We just had a new moon. I hope you're build something. It's never too late. You can always build. The new moon gives you a little extra juice, but you might as well, it doesn't matter when you want to start building something, start building it. Now, in your mind and put it out into the world. These thoughts, right? because we kind of brushed over it, but the idea of thoughts, right? And not, do we have thoughts what are our thoughts? What are our thoughts before we have words? Right? Can you think without words? You can feel, you can desire, you can want, you can express. Clearly, those are, I guess, thoughts. These thoughts originate from urges and desires and wants, right? Now, or physiological things that will trigger a thought, like hunger or thirst or sleep from being tired. But specifically, how much thinking can you do before you know a language. And the premise of that whole writing prompt was, do you remember the first time you understood your name? Which is fascinating, right? Like how many, at least to me, how many times was I called Ryan before I understood that it was referencing me? I don't have a memory of learning my name or understanding it was my name the first time. I wouldn't even know what the words my name meant, even when I knew that the sound Ryan was referencing directly to me, and therefore the sound Ryan, before I even knew it as a name, was indicative of me, I suppose. Much in the same way it was for you as well. Now, that's wild to me, to not have a memory of knowing something. Because I talk a little bit in the book about the power of not having a memory of learning a specific thing. And that specific thing that you learn at such a young age, when you don't have a memory of actually being taught this thing, that has more power as a thing that potentially just could be a real thing or a reality than something we learn later and we have an awareness that we have learned it. When you know you have learned something, it's a little bit different, I would argue, than never having a memory of learning something. For example, for me, what I was referencing in this book I'm writing is the powerful effect of not remembering learning about hell, or I guess heaven as well in that sense, but specifically hell, because of organized religion and their fear-based tactics and, controlling and shaping behaviors of people. Specifically, right? And that's what hell is. It's a tool to shape behavior and affect outcome for what they think you should be doing, or to control this animal, right? This bloodthirsty, cannibal, warring beast that Rutger Bregman in Humankind will shine a light on the fact that this is an incorrect assumption. And we have been taught the wrong thing about true human nature, at least in the form of our early ancestors before we settled down and had quote-unquote civilized society. We were, in fact, not like that at all. So I was writing about, not remembering learning about hell and how it just felt real because of that. And when something is pre-memory, is a pre-memory memory, it becomes more powerful, and at least for me, it feels more interwebbed or more intertwined into the fabric of what reality actually is. So that's where we were getting on all that, or that's where a lot of that spawned from. Form has like 60 definitions, by the way. I did look up form and from to see if they were related in origin. Both come from Old English, different time periods, and they are not related to one another as far as I could tell, even though, God, they're so similar, right? I mean, it's just, I mean, you could argue ant and tan are also similar, and it doesn't mean it's the same letters, just rearranged. Okay, any hoodles, moving on. My meditations used to, now what's interesting about this, I've had conversations with multiple friends who they don't know each other and are in different parts of the country, and both within a couple days of each other reached out to me about the first time they've ever lucid dreamed. And I found it pretty interesting. There seems to be a spike in lucid dreaming happening. I'd be interested if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, holy smokes, I also just had my first lucid dream, or I haven't had one in years, and it started happening again. I'd be interested to hear that. It looks like we got a commercial break coming up. I'm making an executive decision on this one, and we're going to skip it. So we're just going to keep talking. So Okay, so back to it. So I'm a couple nights ago. I'm doing a meditation, and we're talking about lucid dreaming. I'm talking with someone else about that and astral travel. But the interesting thing about this particular meditation, and in the past, I used to light candles, have some incense burning, have some great music. There was a couple different YouTube videos that just had music, right? And I loved them because I felt like they were, for whatever reason, they resonated with me, and I would blast off on these, and I would have incredible visuals while I was meditating, where I would see scenes unfolding. And after I would do, a basic beginning thing, like, get myself into a peaceful space, grow some roots out of my feet and out of my body into the ground to try to receive healing energy from Mother Earth, receive golden light deep from space, to mix in with that as well, and ask permission from the earth to send out and clear out all the negative, the dark, or the shadow that wasn't serving me, and have it converted into positive, joyful, loving, peaceful energy. A process, right? Almost like a coffee maker. Anyway, not like a coffee maker really at all. So forget I even said that. But nowadays, I'm not getting the visuals in that same way. It's interesting, I suppose. But I guess when I'm doing a guided meditation, it's a little bit different. When I'm doing a guided meditation, it totally changes the nature of what I'm seeing or what's happening inside. We'll just say inside. That means during a meditation, when I'm inside it. I've been using the Expand app for months, and now I'm doing, a more advanced Monroe Institute meditation, the Gateway program. And so this happens last night. I'm in a phase of it's about a 35-minute meditation, and I'm in a phase where I'm just supposed to be exploring how I'm more than physical matter. I am more than my body. I am, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world, this sense. And I'm just seeing what that feels like, and I'm trying to understand what that even means, and I'm trying to just stop the brain from thinking about it too much and just kind of be it and do it and expand and grow and get further out or deeper in simultaneously, all of it at the same time. And I have this moment where I don't know if this happens to anyone else. I think I've mentioned it here before, but sometimes if I'm in a meditation, I will be overcome with such an amazing wave of energy from time to time. And it'll be supercharged with emotion, overwhelming to the point where, you feel your face starting to crinkle up into the cry. Do you know what I mean? When your face scrunches into a weep setting. And so my face is scrunching up into a weep setting. And this happens often to me. I'll become aware, like, oh, am I getting ready to cry? Right? It'll kind of like, it jolts me back a little bit into, kind of the world, the real world. And I'll be like, oh, I'm getting ready to cry. Oh my gosh. And then it'll turn into a yawn. It's interesting. And you might be saying, well, maybe you're just getting yawn face. No, I know the difference between yawn face and cry mode, and cry face. And it's weird how it transmutes upon awareness of what might happen next. It transfers the energy sort of in a weird way, and becomes a cry face, or becomes a yawn situation instead. And yeah, I don't know what that's about, but it's interesting, and it's happened multiple times to me. And I mean, it's happened probably dozens of times, at least, if I had to guess, 30 times, 40 times over the years. So I have that moment. And then I so I do a yawn, and then I slowly transfer into a deeper state somehow. And even though the yawn kind of, in the awareness of, I might cry, and then turns into a yawn, brings me back into the world a little bit, into my body. But then almost immediately after that, I feel like I kind of went, it was like one step back to go 2 steps forward, if that makes any sense. Then, all of a sudden, I feel myself going down and up. I am extending physically and energetically. I am a tree, and I am a forest, in fact. Am I a tree or am I a forest? You might be asking, well, Ryan, which one is it? Are you a tree or are you the forest? And I don't know what to tell you other than I was both at the same time. And my roots, I could feel them exploring beneath the surface, reaching, growing, getting further down and out. I could feel my branches expanding, sprouting new branches, leaves sprouting from seedlings or pods, I suppose they would be, flowering. I could feel my branches flowering into leaves. I felt the moisture from the air even though it wasn't raining. It was not raining, and I could feel the moisture in the air. I was consuming carbon dioxide. And I knew what I would be putting out would be giving life, producing oxygen through, the way trees do that. Now, I don't remember it being super sunny or anything like that. It was kind of dark, in fact. And I would shift, my focus would shift. I wasn't doing it. It's just my awareness in the moment would be shifting back and forth between tree and forest. And suddenly I realized I am every plant. I am every living thing on the planet. I am everything on the planet Earth. What's interesting is the idea is to understand that you are more than your physical self, and you are more than physical matter, and you can experience that which is more than the physical world. Yet I am experiencing the entirety of the physical world, and to some degree here as trees. And then I have this awareness that I'm every plant. I'm the grass. I am the singular blade of grass underneath your foot. I simultaneously am the begonia or the cactus, the poison ivy in the woods by the creek. I am all of that. And then, bam, it's silence. I am falling from high in the sky, and I'm so tiny. I'm so little. And I can see where I'm headed. I am on a crash course for a very large, very still pond, a body of water. I am the first drop of rain falling from a new storm. And I feel like a droplet of water, of rain. I struggled to find the words to communicate my thoughts, which I think is why I wanted to start the episode with that writing today. Clearly, it was on my mind. And we talk about this in the world of the paranormal constantly. being able to find the right words to help people understand. I felt more like a drop of rain last night during my meditation than I potentially, what is that word? What two words am I combining? Let me start that over. I felt like a drop of rain so much. I felt more like a drop of rain last night during that meditation and understood what it felt like to be a drop of rain than I have probably ever felt like Ryan Singer human being in my body on this earth in 48 years. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know why for maybe a few minutes max, I was so self-aware and so comfortable in my skin as just a droplet of rain. More comfortable in my droplet of rain form than I've ever been in my physical body here on earth. We're going to talk more about this because then it goes deeper, it goes further than this. And we are going to use this commercial break. And so, yeah, just hit that fast forward button a couple times because, I got to put a few more commercials in if I break less often. Break less often? Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, we're going to be right back with more. Maybe we'll get into Lemuria. And I have returned. I hope you have returned as well. And this is my physical form, not the droplet of water. Although I certainly am simultaneously the drop of water as well, bringing podcasting to you. The first, a podcast by a droplet of rain. Maybe that's my new project I could do. And it's just boink, boink, boink. Okay, I'm trying to make rain noises. Sorry if that sounded really weird. I mean, it was me sticking my finger into my mouth. But I was doing that cheek thing. There we go. There it was. We got it. So anyway, I am a droplet of rain. I am more comfortable being a droplet of rain than I've ever felt in my own skin. Do you ever notice, is it just me or does it matter how old you get and you're like, every once in a while you'll change the way you're walking somehow and you'll be like, wait, is this the way I should have, is this the way I'm supposed to, is this the way to walk? And now you question how you've walked for the entirety of your life. Like, oh my God, I've looked like a clown. I've looked like a baby horse that was just born. I've never walked properly in my entire life. And now I've got it. This is the way to walk. I'm finally walking to where people see me. They're going to be like, that guy knows how to walk. And you're like, that's right. And you walk with confidence because I'm walking here. This is how you walk. This is how I walk. This is how I should have been walking this whole time. Why did it take me so long to figure out how to walk? It reminds me of that, Monty Python, the Ministry of Funny Walks, where there's all those different walks. Anyway, are you experimenting with your walk? I highly suggest you get out there and mix it up a little bit. See what walk that you maybe have never attempted feels more you. Go for it. Monty Python would be proud of you. But yeah, so I don't know, why am I talking? Oh yeah, because I have these moments constantly where I'm like, I think we all feel this. It doesn't matter how confident or whatever people feel or how shameless they are about just being themselves. And, the people who are, great at being themselves, I think a lot of us are envious of that. And we don't need to be envious. We just need to, realize we can get there if we try maybe. But we're not, I've never been that comfortable inside my body or with my body. I mean, I have moments, don't get me wrong. There are moments where I'm just like, this body's great. This is me being a physical person. I know how to move my arms and legs and do things and talk. And I'm comfortable with the way I look right now. Or, I've had moments like that, and usually it's when you're, surrounded by people you love and you can be vulnerable with. And, you're all, your friends or whatever. You feel comfortable. You feel like, oh, I can be myself around them. You hear that phrase a lot. And so what does that even mean? I think it's emotionally, it's verbally, it's physically. It's all those things simultaneously. There's different aspects to it. So this rain droplet felt right for me. It felt right as rain, as they say. Wow, that kind of just worked out. I wasn't planning on saying that, but I guess that's what talking is. Making up words as you go along that hopefully come close to matching the thoughts you're having in your mind. So, I was right as rain as this droplet. I felt so good. But I could see where I was headed, and I was headed to the pond, basically like a glass table. Water was so still. And then, boom, right into the pond. And guess what? I realized I didn't feel any different. I was the pond the whole time. The whole time that I was the droplet, I was also the pond. So I thought I might lose my identity as this single drop of rain. What I didn't realize, once I joined the collective of the pond, I was the pond all along, and it felt no different than being the single drop of rain. I didn't sacrifice my individuality. I didn't give up my identity. I was still me, but here's the rub. I was more than me. I was it all now. I no longer needed the separation, the differentiation. I didn't need the boundary. I didn't need space between where I began and ended and where something else began and ended. There was no space. It was an illusion the whole time. The feeling, the physical feeling of being that droplet now in the larger body of water was the same, but maybe even slightly warmer and more comforting, potentially. I mean, I just got done telling you for 10 minutes how I never felt more myself than when I was the droplet of rain. But then once I enter that pond, and now there's no differentiation between me and all the other droplets of rain that are composing that pond, I felt even more me. It was bonkers. And it felt so damn good. And it makes me think that I might have had the timeline mixed up on this, and that the emotionality, the surge of emotions that I had that turned into a yawn, the cry that turned into a yawn, probably happened after this, because it was a pretty overwhelming and powerful thing, to the point where I was like, I have to remember this and I have to write it down because I don't want to forget what this felt like. And so drip, drip, dude. Drip, drip, drop. We're all just droplets of rain in this big pond. And, it made me feel super connected. And it spoke to, I guess, the larger theme of trying to understand I'm more than just myself. And I'm a visual learner oftentimes. And I'm also an auditory learner. I do, both. I mean, I learn in different ways, obviously. And sometimes for certain things, I learn better doing one way than the other. And that changes depending on what it is I'm trying to learn. Like if I'm learning a script, it's different. I'm like a doer. I'm a writer. I have to write the dialogue out. And then I have to say it, and then I have to listen to me saying, anyway, you don't need to know my process as an actor. But, so I have to write down 1,000 times, like, this season, try TurboTax. And then I don't get the audition. I'm like, I guess I'm not a good actor. Why? Because I can't act like I'm throwing a bunch of papers out of a car window that's moving and yelling, this season it's TurboTax. What would Shakespeare say about that? What would Stanislavski think about that? I think we know the answer. He would say, drip, drip, dude, you're a drop. Drip, drip, you're a drop. Join the pond. So that was pretty cool. And, but it is the idea, the illusion of separation, and how much more optimistic I can be. I've had a pretty good day today, all told. And I think a lot of it has to do with this realization last night and through this meditation. And because there was an exciting Zoom call I had this morning with Dr. Jeff Tarrant, who's been on the program, and my friend Carolyn down in Florida. We went over some experiment results that had been analyzed, and there was some really interesting stuff about brain activity and things like that, oh boy, I can't wait to be bringing you that documentary at some point next year about the whole Florida investigation and all the work. It's a behemoth. We are gonna do another break here, and so we're gonna be right back, and we're gonna talk about that Bigfoot video, and then we're gonna get into Lemuria. Maybe we'll do both. Who knows? Depending on how quickly I can do it or get around to it. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I hope you are too. Just a reminder to the patrons, no commercials on these for $3 a month. Never have to listen to commercials again. Wouldn't that be great? So over on the Patreon page, I made public and free to the public. You don't even have to be a free patron to be able to watch the Bigfoot video. I've got it on my Instagram, @Rising, me and Paranormal You, and I've got it on YouTube as well. I think I call it California River Bigfoot is what it's called on YouTube. And it's on TikTok. I mean, I got to be on all these things. Blue Sky, Threads. It's not on either of those, but that's not the point. So I noticed that even people I knew were kind of like, man, this video is really shaky. And I think what they don't realize is how shaky it's not in comparison to the original. And when you're deep into a project, you are aware of so many of the finite details and some of the even medium-sized details that you forget that everybody else doesn't know that. And you make assumptions that people understand certain things from context clues from the video itself. Because if you watch that video, it's a cell phone. It's shot in portrait mode on a cell phone camera 4 years ago, and people would be like, well, with the cameras on cell phones now. Yeah, they're still not NASA telescopes. People just don't want to admit that, but that's the truth. But when you zoom all the way in, some of these cell phone cameras are brilliant, and they are remarkable technology. And I've talked about them. I can 3D map on mine for prints and things like that. But if you zoom in too far, then it becomes very pixelated. People use the word blurry, but in essence, the technical term is they become pixelated. You lose detail because the lens isn't powerful. Like I said, it's not a NASA telescope, right? You can't take a picture of the surface of the moon with your cell phone camera. Now, the footage that I posted from Dan Butler, who was on the program a couple weeks ago, we're going to have him back probably to follow up and talking about this. You can see how far away they are from this creature, this Sasquatch, I believe, this Oma, in the riverbed, because they zoom all the way. He has to zoom all the way in max. And it's still pretty small, but it's large enough to see. Now, I took that footage and I put it into video editing software, and I zoomed in even further. What happened to my voice there? That sounded weird. And so I zoomed into the max cell phone footage, and I zoomed in even further because I wanted the creature to be larger on screen for people to be able to see its form and its movements. And then I went frame by frame and I moved it to try to keep it centered to a certain degree. Now, that was, it's not the most difficult thing you'll ever do in your life to try to manually stabilize a video, is what we call it. But it is very tedious. It's a tedious task. So it's like, 1/4 of a second by 1/4 of a second by 1/4, you just dong, 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 move, 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 add keyframe, move, move. Anyway, so the video is shaky. So but it occurs to me later talking with Matthew Jackson that it's like, oh, people think this is the cell phone footage that I'm posting. And even though I zoomed in and stabilized, even though I said that, even though you see the original footage unedited, and then after that I put in edited versions, zoomed in versions. But it doesn't matter. People don't pay attention. People just watch things. They consume things and they don't look at the details. They're not putting these things together. And I'm deep into it, right? I've been working on this video for like 2 weeks. So I'm like, I know all these things I've already done without even thinking I have to mention that I've done them. I will just assume that people understand that I've done them when in fact they don't. It's an unreasonable assumption on my part to think that people will know that and that it's zoomed in. So some people think this is just super zoomed in and that he was a vibrator, that the guy filming this was just, in fact, not a person at all, but a vibrator filming, holding a phone or the tripod, or, it's like, yeah, it's handheld, super zoomed in. So the slightest little movement makes it just go all over the place. Now you can do a little experiment on your cell phone. You can zoom all the way in on something and film, and I implore you to try this. Try to just film something that's standing still with your hands and zoomed all the way in, and see how stable that looks. I mean, that's what people who, because there's people out there, there's obviously levels of haters and trolls on the internet, and some of them come at you hard, and as if they could do any better. But hey, that's just, that it's going to happen when you post something like this that challenges people's perceptions and challenges their paradigm that they're bought into. And in fact, they're pretty deeply invested in it, many of them, and will bark and fight against anything that challenges it, because then they'd have to reassess many things in their life and their worldview if they didn't. So you expect that. But to me, now I'm biased because I put out the video, and I'm also biased because Dan Butler is a friend of mine. To me, that is some of the most compelling Bigfoot footage you're going to see, at least lately. Now, to me, it's clearly not a bear. You can tell by the shape of the creature. Its shoulders are way too broad, and it's not a bear. If you look at it standing up, that's just not what bears look like. And it's not a man in a ghillie suit, I guess, fishing by submerging himself with no fishing pole and just hand fishing in a ghillie suit by himself out in, Central California wilderness by the river. Can I guarantee you that it's not a bear and it's not a man in a ghillie suit? No, but I can tell you this. Dan Butler goes and investigates Bigfoot and has for years, and he is part of a research group, or he has a team of investigators that are friends of his. Now, Dan Butler, like he talked about on the program, was a former sniper. He's law enforcement. He's an investigator, former game warden. A lot of investigation through law enforcement. Now, this is the authority thing, right, or whatever it's called. Like when you use like someone, you posit them as an authority to make it more believable or whatever. But it is true. He spent a lot of time he knows how to. He's an investigator. Details matter to investigators. Greg Feynman will tell you that. Now, his group that he goes out with, and they go to some crazy places that are private. They're not advertised. None of the stuff goes online. None of the video, none of the stuff ever finds its way on the internet. Because it's just, I think they all met together through the BFRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization. A lot of these guys are also law enforcement and military investigators. And they went back out, some of them, and try to recreate the video, the scene that unfolded. And I can speak to Dan Butler, his desire to do recreations firsthand in 2019 when we were in Florida together, and he caught the creature on FLIR, and we have the head of it peering over like a downsloped hill looking back up towards us. We went out the next day, and we were very tedious in trying to do a recreation to try to understand how, what the size of the creature might be, how far away it was, etc. Very tedious in the detail and trying to make a recreation to get an accurate estimation about the size of the creature and how far away it was. So they did that, and he told me, and because I talked to him on the phone, I think it was last night or 2 nights ago when I first put the video out, and just to make sure that he thought, he liked it and whatever, had his approval. And we were talking about it, and he goes, dude, we did the recreation, and it was at least 8 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Now, these are guys who pride themselves on details and facts and, evidence, etc. And 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide. So, yowzers. That is a big one. Now, if that's a man in a ghillie suit, boy, oh boy. And I don't, I'm not a bear expert, but I don't think there's 8-foot bears in Central California. I could be wrong. Maybe there are. But the way that thing's moving its arms around and moving around and walking, it's not a bear. It's clear to me. Anyway, so that's some clarification on that Bigfoot video, the California River Bigfoot. We're going to be right back after this final break. Hello, let's hit the home stretch, shall we? I don't know how much longer this episode is going to go, but there won't be any more commercials. I might talk for another 20 minutes. You just never know what happens. The world is a vampire. I'd love to get Billy Corgan on the show. Talk about the shapeshifter. But, fingers crossed, who knows? I want to read to you. Well, actually, before we do that, I am going to go up to this area. I'm going to go to this area where the video was taken, and I will, you know what? That's not a bad idea, actually. I'm going to try to recreate that video with Dan Butler for the skeptical-minded people out there, and maybe we'll get a really good camera. Although I'll use a cell phone for like a recreation of the cell phone part of it. But I'm going to get up there early next year in 2025. We're going to go up there. We will recreate it again for you. I mean, I'm volunteering Dan for something that he hasn't agreed to, but I'm sure he'd be up for it probably, because we are going to go out to the location. So I'll keep you posted about that. Now I want to read to you from, and I don't even know if this ties in. Let's just have a fun little segment here, because I'm thinking about Mount Shasta. I'm thinking about Lemuria. I'm thinking about the Lemurians. I had a reading because while we were in Florida, Dr. Jeff Tarrant was doing an EEG test on Dr. Rebecca Foster to analyze and measure and capture her brain activity while she was at rest and just being normal, and then also while she was doing a reading. Now, we don't have those results. I haven't seen those results yet, but I was the only one in the room. There was just the 3 of us doing that, and I was filming. And so since I was the one in the room, she gave me a reading. Right, a short reading, like it was just a really short reading, just to try to get that part of her brain activated and going, right? To see if we could measure a difference between her normal brain and when she's doing a reading. And I'm certain it'll probably show a difference, because her reading was bonkers. Now, it was a very short reading, but she didn't even know the word Lemuria, but it came up. She was like trying to figure out what the word was. She was like lemurs or something like that. I'll have to find the audio. I have the video. I haven't watched it yet because I'm so excited to watch this that I can't watch it. Have you ever been like that? Anyway, And I've also had just too much going on. I'm like, I can't get sucked into this right now because then I'll just want to start editing the whole documentary movie. But, if you've ever listened to this program for, especially if you're one of the OGs who've just been here for 10 years, like that's insane. That's crazy. But you know that I've been fascinated with the Lemurians and Mount Shasta and all that for a long, long time. And I can't wait to get up there early next year as well. But here's some, this is from page 60. This is about Lemuria, right? We can't give all the context because I have to read I'd have to read the first 59 pages for you to understand every tiny detail about what I'm going to read. But just know that this book, well, it's got some interesting inscriptions on it as well. What other books did L. Sprague de Camp write? The Arrows of Hercules, The Bronze God of Rhodes, The Dragon of the Ishtar Gate, An Elephant for Aristotle, The Goblin Tower, The Golden Wind, A Gun for Dinosaur. Okay, these are fiction books. Nonfiction, The Ancient Engineers, the Conan Reader, Elephant, Energy and Power, Engines, Great Cities of the Ancient World, The Great Monkey Trial, and with C. de Camp, Ancient Ruins and Archaeology, Darwin and His Great Discovery, The Day of the Dinosaur. Another one is Spirits, Stars, and Spells, The Story of Science in America. And there's another one, what is it, Demons and Dinosaurs? That's a verse. Okay, interesting. I'm trying to find you a publication. Oh, we got a map here, by the way. Yeah. I've got a map. Copyright 1954. Yowzers. 70 years ago, right? So 70 years ago, that's when this first came out. Dedicated to Catherine Crook de Camp, best of wives. Does it mean his wives or wives in general? Anyway, we don't have to worry about that. Live and let live. I guess unless you're... No, not really. Okay. We're not going down that rabbit hole. Okay, here we go. Page 60. In due course, Hyperborea broke up. No, that's like a landmass, right? It's in this whole world of lost continents, etc., etc. In due course, Hyperborea broke up, and the equally great southern continent of Lemuria took form. Lemuria flourished in the Mesozoic era, and hence was infested by dinosaurs and other dangerous reptiles. Pterosaurus flew through the air on leathery wings. Ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs swam the marshes. When the Manu, one of the supernatural supervisors of the Theosophical universe, decided to bring human evolution a step further forward, he took as his model the ape-like creatures that had already evolved on other planets. The Manu's first attempt resulted in jelly-like things with soft bones who could not stand up, but in time the structure of their bodies hardened. These primitive and dim-witted Lemurians were hardly more attractive than the reptiles with which they shared the earth. From some unnamed source, the author quotes a description of a Lemurian. He was between 12 and 15 feet tall. Okay. With a brown skin, a flat face with a protruding muzzle, and small eyes set so wide apart that he could see sideways as well as forward. He had no forehead, but was still furnished with a third eye in the back. What? Oh, that got me. I don't remember this. Which among us is still represented by the pineal gland in the brain. Ooh, okay. So the idea is that this third eye that was in the back of the head for the Lemurian has now become the pineal gland. His long limbs could not be completely straightened, and he had huge hands and feet. You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? And, well, if you're 12 to 15 feet tall, I'm guessing. Anyway, the heels of which stuck out so far to the rear that he could walk equally backward and forward. He wore a loose robe of reptile skin, carried a wooden spear, and led a pet plesiosaur on a leash. By a strange coincidence, within the last decade, scientists have found in southeastern Asia the bones and teeth of enormous early Pleistocene ape man, Gigantothropus and Meganthropus, of whom I'm saying that incorrectly, apologies. Gigantothropus, of whom the largest specimens seem to have been bigger than a full-grown 500-pound gorilla. These monsters match the Theosophical Lemurians in size, if not in much else. Of course, this does not prove that the Theosophists knew what they were talking about, any more than Plato's mention of the outer continent shows that he knew of America. It is perfectly possible to hit upon a scientific fact by pure chance, though random guesswork is not recommended as a method of scientific research. This is where, it's interesting here, and I know the music's on. I'm probably going to move it forward so you won't hear it. While originally egg-laying hermaphrodites, the Lemurians began to learn about sex during the period of their fourth subrace, and by their fifth subrace were reproducing their kind as we do. Being stupid things, they interbred with beasts, the products of this perverted union being the great apes. This sin so revolted the laws, LHAS, the supernatural beings who, according to the cosmic plan, were supposed at this stage to incarnate in human bodies, that the Las refused to do their duty. Accordingly, other beings from Venus, which had already developed a high civilization, volunteered to take the Las' place. These lords of the flame guided faltering humankind to the point where the Lemurians became capable of individual immortality and reincarnation. Okay, so that's just a little bit from this book. I mean, this book was written in 1954. There's parts of it that I find suspect, to say the least, and, I won't read all of it. There's, when you start speculating about, now, like certain races of people that are on the planet and things like this, are we talking about, fictionalized sci-fi racism, things like that? I don't know who the author is of this book. It's an interesting book for sure. And it expound ever since Plato mentioned this Atlantis thing. It's just been a free for all, and so all kinds of people have been getting into the game of talking about, writing about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I tend to believe that if the Lemurians were to exist, right? Okay, let's say they do. I think they're inside Mount Shasta. And, are they from this accounting? It doesn't seem likely. Anyway, we got some shows coming up. New Year's Eve in Dayton, Kentucky at the Commonwealth Sanctuary. Get some tickets. Come see me. Spend your New Year's. Let's ring in the New Year together. Anyway, I hope to see you maybe around Los Angeles. I'll be out here for a little bit longer before I head back for the holidays and do that show and then come back. But if I don't see you at a live show, I'll just see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.